Hi, this is Chuck Sheldon-Brand, and today's topic is the important topic of tracking candidates as they move through the interview process. And it turns out that that's something which a database, and certainly a resume database, does a very nice job with, because when you click in an interview date, it doesn't just land on the candidate screen, it lands on the hiring manager and the job and the client and the daily planner. In other words, you get a lot of payback for tracking an interview, a send out, a offer, and acceptance. Key dates that kind of mark the process of a candidate being presented to a hiring manager, those key dates get propagated all through the database based on just a handful of clicks. So it's more efficient than using spreadsheets possibly, or just Word docs or something, Outlook folders, whatever, to keep track of this stuff. The database is going to do a more efficient job, just a few clicks, and then you get lots of good benefits that will flow from that, and that's what we're going to talk about starting right now. So let's put a clean record in here, because we want to have somebody. I'm going to click. This is hardly a review, but you go back to the beginning here. We're going to add a record to the database, the same person we always add, and say OK, and say save, and say OK. But the point is, I want to put a clean record in here, because if you recall, in the layout of the RESUMate screen, this upper left-hand portion is like a reference card, name, address, phones, email, and so on, then dates of your choosing and text fields, and here comes the classification, these keywords extracted from this resume. But here's today's topic. This section of the screen called, in this case it says active job order activity is 0. There's a tab that says all job order activity, and that still says 0. But the point is, on the candidate screen, we're going to see if the candidate is in play today on a job or ever has been presented on a job behind the All tab. So this is the section of the screen, and we're going to see the data that we click here be propagated all over the place, so that your database is being updated and all of your filing is being done on the fly. Now I clicked on the add button. Let's go back there. Here's the candidate record I just put in. Next to this section called active and all jobs is our buttons open and new. So we got to click new. There's nothing here, so we'll click new. And that takes us to this job order activity screen. It joins the list of tabs across the top. But this screen is, in essence, a bridge between a person and a job. Now, the cursor is blinking where it says job orders, but if I were to bang on my keyboard, I cannot get any typing to happen there, because I have to click on this icon that says select job orders. Precisely because lots of linkages are about to be established, we need to not just type where the may not match a job title itself, but if I click this icon, oh, here's a list. It says 10 records listed. So I've got 10 active jobs, and I usually pick this job for no good reason. So we'll connect the candidate to, so I just selected a job from clicking on this list icon, and now my bridge essentially crosses the river, right? The candidate's on one side of the river and the job's on the other side, but I've got a bridge between two records. Now, all important to have customized this screen to reflect your own take on how send out and interviews and offers and how that whole process goes down. Now, mine simply says resume sent, phone interview, first interview, second interview, offer, acceptance. Nothing wrong with that. That's kind of common sense and logical, but you may have a different take on that. And then, so there are on this bridge, there are 6 dates, and then 16, 2 columns of 8, 16 text fields. For most people, the 16 text fields is overkill. You couldn't find reasons to have 16 things to talk about, but if you place people on temp assignments, so then we care about workers' comp and pay rates and overtime rates and bill rates and stuff. So if you don't do that, you're going to have a lot of, you can just call these notes or something, call them unused, call them anything. But kind of on the left-hand side, I set this up for 3rd and 4th interviews. But here's kind of common sense stuff: current issues, next step, money needed, declined offer. These would be things that I think for most contingency search firms, whether whether retained or contingency, and most corporate HR departments, you would care about things like, well, what's the next step? Because this data is going to appear all over the place. And so here, the first point is, I need this screen. I cross-filed Ken with a job. Now I'm going to click and say the 15th of March, and I'm going to click in some other stuff as though we know it all on the front end here. In real life, you wouldn't know all that. I'm just clicking some stuff in kind of randomly here. I'm going to click Save. Click. Now, in real life, you probably wouldn't know these downstream dates, but, you know, as you learn them, you simply come back to this screen and start clicking the data in. But here's the thing. When I click that Save icon, 5 different places in my database are now up to speed, up to date with this send out and interview set of facts, right? I can start, we're going to count to 5, and I'm going to start by clicking on the blue folder next to Ken's name. When you see little folders like this next to a field, in this case it's a job order, here's a candidate. If you click it, you go there. So click the little blue folder right back on Ken, but it doesn't say 0 anymore, right? It says active job order activity, 1 record. By the way, life to date should 1 record too, right? Because right now, you know, that's an active person. But right on his screen, client, job title, next step, money needed, phone interview, first interview. This detail appears with 0 clicks on his screen. What did I want to say about? Well, you can drag and drop columns. Let me. I don't want to get too far off track here, but here, if you click this little tiny icon right now, my send out screen section is above. My valid table is at the bottom. If I click this little tiny icon here, click, it reverses the order of those 2 things. So now my send out details at the bottom and my valid table. The point is, if I now pop up these little arrows here allow me to pop up the text portion. Well, now I can see the whole thing, right? I just opened up to show Boeing, design engineer, next step, resume sent, phone interview first, money, social security number. There's a lot of kind of trash in my little show and tell database here, but the point is I can see all of those 6 dates and 16 text fields right on his screen. Now, I think in real life, you don't need to see all those things. I'm going to pop this down. I'm going to restore. I'm going to click this little guy here, and now my send out is above. I think that's just a tidier presentation. But the point for openers is that you will see this data with 0 clicks. Now, if it's just you, the 0 clicks thing is not quite so critical. But what if you're in a setup where other people are clicking this kind of stuff in, other recruiters in your organization? Well, it's very handy not to have to look someplace else to see the fact of this person is already being submitted on a design engineer's job at Boeing. You'd want to know that. That'd be like a critical fact. The whole design concept behind RESUMate is that everything is on this one screen. Everything about Ken here. We got our notes over here. We got his resume here, and we could have his LinkedIn profile, his interview form, you know, all kind of stuff about this guy. And we've got his resume is on the paperclip. Oops, I clicked the wrong icon. Let's go back to Ken. So I meant to click this paperclip. And so here's his doc file, and you can have up to 10 external files, as photograph, any old thing you got, cover letter. We've got a log of all of our email traffic to and from this guy. We got so much stuff about this particular person. I'm going to kill this. The point is, obviously, critical data. I want you to go away. Okay, critical data. Hang on. I'm clicking too fast. I'm clicking too fast here. The point is, send out data like this is critical. I mean, you talk about data that's important. Well, what could be more important than my email log or my interview form? This is an important piece of information. He's currently being interviewed. The resume was sent today. There's a phone screen on the 17th and so on. So the data from that bridge screen has landed on Ken's screen. Now we're going to click the word open next to this thing. Instead of new, we'll click open. But this time, we'll click the little green folder to go to the design engineer's job record itself. Now, something kind of important. This job is marked active. There are status buttons, active, inactive. Every job on which you are submitting candidates and actually spending time and money to fill that job, that's an active job. If the job's been filled and it's over, that job is done. Well, don't delete it because it's going to contain so much valuable historical data. Just mark it as inactive. So we have these status buttons, active and active. But now here's Ken, all right, on this, here's number 2 in my count to 5. I go to the job order, here's Ken. So when I'm on a job, I can see all of the people who are active. Now, if I can click this Life to Date tab, I've got 12 people that I had at some point in time linked to this job. But of those 12, these 6 are the active ones. And here's all that data, those 16 text fields and 6 date fields, all showing up at the bottom of the job order. Now, some more little folders, right? There's a light blue next to Boeing and a dark blue next to Wilbur Wright, hiring manager. If I click to go to Boeing, click, and I click on the Active People tab, well, here's Ken for time number 3, instance number 3. Ken is connected to the Boeing screen. So if I'm looking at a client screen, simply clicking on this tab at the bottom, Active People, is going to give me all of the people currently in play on different job orders. All the candidates who are being interviewed at that company are going to show up here. Let's go back to the job order itself. So we've been to 3 places so far: the candidate, the job, the client. Here's the 4th place. Here's Wilbur Wright. Click. And here's a tab on Wilbur's screen called Active People. And of course, here's Ken on the Wilbur screen. And the idea is when you're talking to a hiring manager, remember you can jump straight to that person's record by clicking on this binoculars deal. Hey, Wilbur Wright, you answer the phone, you would pop this thing, get his record on your screen from the binocular, and here's all the people. And by the way, when you see lists, so here I know that in terms of active people, he's got 6 people that I've sent to him, and they could be on different jobs, they could be anything. So here's the 6 people connected to him. By the way, all of these column titles are buttons, right? And if you click it, this says resume sent. Right now, Ken's at the top, 315 of 17. Click. Now Ken's at the bottom because I reversed the sequence, made it the oldest, so 314 of 1912, not 1912, 2012. But if I click it, now Ken's at the top. So anything that you want, you can here alphabetically. If I click last name, here's Adams and Anaya and Fix. Click it again. Now it's reverse alphabetical. So when you see, the idea is to make these columns as communicative as possible. You want to be able, same old story, 0 clicks. I want to see the way I like the data, but mostly I want to see the data. I want to show on the hiring manager screen all of the people. So far, that little click way back on Ken, we jump to here. Here's where we started out. And then we created, I'm going to click open. We created this bridge screen on which we linked him and this job. And we put some dates in. Again, that stuff's been pushed through my database to the candidate's record, the job, the client, and the hiring manager. One more quick item to note here before we go to the daily planner is that just as there are status buttons on the job order, well, there are status buttons on the activity screen, active, inactive. If at some point Ken washes out on this job, either the client says nix or he says I don't want to work there or whatever, switch it to inactive. Right? Every new one starts as active, but when he's no longer in consideration, don't delete the fact of the send out. No. Just mark it as inactive, and that way that valuable data is preserved in your database. So now let's go back to him just to kind of clean things up. So here's Ken, and that send out is on him. It's on the client, the hiring manager, the job order. But here's another neat thing called the daily planner. Click. I think I've kind of messed up my database a little bit here. This should come like click. It should take no time to present this, so I may need to close resume and restart, but we'll just keep going. Here's the deal. This is a thing called a daily planner, a tab. This blue and white empty column here is where you would see promise callbacks. Now, next Monday's seminar, which is the next seminar in the sequence, We'll take all this apart, slow it all down, and show you how to use this thing. But for the moment, just know that this blue and white band is your RESUMate calendar, typically used to record promise callbacks. See, I'll talk to you in 6 months. Call you next week. Whatever you say, you can click it into your database, and now in your daily planner, your promise callbacks all get listed out here, so it's kind of a handy thing. But the money side is over here. Job orders marked active, and if I scroll down, it says job order activity records marked active, which is to say people. And if I scroll down a little bit further, we'll see, here's old Ken for number 5 here. Here's the 5th place that he landed as a result of those few clicks we made on that bridge screen. Let's go back up to the top and understand what this thing is. Basically, it's very simple. Every job that's marked active is a row. So here's 2 rows underneath AAA. Underneath Boeing are 3 rows. Here's our design engineer's job. So jobs are rows, active jobs only. It says job order records marked active, those status buttons active and inactive. So if a job is marked active, it shows up here. It shows up here under a banner. The banner is the client. And by the way, when you have, every time I touch something here, it goes to an underscore. So if I were looking at this AAA job where Joseph Alexander is the contact, click, there's his screen. This daily planner is hooked right back into my database. Here's my design engineer's job. Here's Wilbur Wright. Click. I'm on Wilbur Wright's screen. Go back here. I want to click on the logistics technician's job. Click. Here's the job. So when you're in the daily planner, if you see something that you need to kind of pursue that further, well, the records underneath these entries are all just linked back into the daily planner. So couldn't be slicker. Now, these last 2 columns, total and active links. Here's our design engineer's job with Wilbur as the hiring manager. Just some information stuff over here. But these numbers are automatically generated, 12 and 6. I've linked 12 people, total links, 12 people, active links, 6. So obvious question is, who are the 6? Well, you got to scroll down. So if I scroll down to my activity record, so that the top section just says jobs marked active. Next section says activity records marked active. Same idea. Well, let's go down a bit further. Here's my design engineer's job, and Wilbur Wright is the contact, Boeing is the client, and now here are the 6 people. And here's Ken in the roster of 6. And the way these columns work is the leftmost of the last 3 columns is stuff that happened up through yesterday. This is stuff happening today. This is stuff happening in the future. Well, my little show and tell database has a lot of data skewed to the left because I don't try to keep this up to date. These are old things from 2013, and who knows how old this stuff is. But here's Ken. I put him in because I needed some data in the current column and in the future column. And the idea is that this one daily planner screen is, in essence, an up-to-speed whiteboard. If you were to have one of those big old whiteboards hanging on the wall, and you had all the jobs that are active in the company at any one time, and then detail about which candidates are in play on those jobs and what's the next interview date. Well, here it is, except it's all electronic. It's all automatic because you don't need to do anything. Just click dates into those activity screens, and your summary whiteboard is always up to the minute correct. So having that data land for the 5th and final time in the daily planner. So we go back to our people tab. Here's Ken, and everything happened. I'm going to open this tab again. Everything happened because I clicked in these dates and I linked him to a job. And by just doing that, 5 different places in my database, the candidate, the job order, the hiring manager, and the client, plus the daily planner, all of those things got updated simultaneously. So filing, a mundane, tired old topic called filing, we don't, now computers do filing. People don't do so much filing anymore. People used to file paper in 4-drawer file cabinets and stuff. Well, those days are over. And now you just do it with mouse clicks. And it's the same deal, though. Filing was and continues to be important because if you're talking to, let's just jump back to our job and jump back to Wilbur. If you're talking to Wilbur, having on this one tab all of the people that he's filing all these candidate records under Wilbur's folder. Hey, that's a neat thing to do. Well, it just happens automatically. You don't need to spend any extra time to make that good thing happen. So the whole idea behind what I'll call the send out screen in RESUMate, if I go back to Ken, this little screen, so we'll click open one last time here, this screen is the ball game. This screen records information and then sends it where you want it to go. So tracking send out activity in your database is, to say the least, a very good thing. Now I want to go back to the job order for a second, and I want to talk about a little bit more detail here. Okay, here's the job that we were talking about, design engineer. It's marked active, and then here's my active job order activity. Here's the 6 people who are currently in play on that job, and then here's the life to date. Here's the 12 people that are on that job. One of these 2 tabs over here, what's this about? Because there's 2 tabs here, active job order activity, all job order activity. This one says active people and all people. I'm going to change something once, just another sort of quick review. I'm going to go to File Database Tools and click on the very top one that says Settings. Here's my database settings. This is the customizing seminar from a week ago, Monday. I'm going to change my people tab. I'm going to call this candidates again. I think it just makes the screens look better. So I spelled it correctly, candidates. So let's just say save. And now when we go to our job order screen and we look at the bottom, here's my left 2 tabs, active job order activity, all activity, active candidates. Instead of people, I just changed the window name up here to say candidates. And so now these tabs kind of look a little better to me, and it says active and all candidates. I'm going to click the all candidates tab. Now, a little detail there, but notice that the little icon next to these right 2 tabs is the solid blue folder, and the tab, the little icon next to the activity, is kind of a pair of folders to indicate a link between 2 folders. But if I go to all candidates, it says 11 people, and I'm on this rightmost tab, and I'm going to double click the first person. Here's a window in which those people are all presented, but as an active window in under the candidate tab. So I've got the people connected to that job that, because I can put them into a window, I could do things like come down here below the globe icon, click. I could send an email blast, email clipboard copier. I can send a BCC mail. I can send a personalized mail. Again, RESUMate is not an email program. All it's doing is collecting the addresses to send to Outlook or to whatever program that you use to manage. It could be Gmail, could be anything. And if you're doing, personalized mail, it could be Constant Contact. It could be a ton of programs that deal with personalization of emails. But RESUMate can grab all the addresses. The names and addresses are just the addresses. Because I can create a window in my main candidates tab, which is these people who are connected to the job. You could use that to send a thank you note to the people who participated in the job with you, and say thanks for participating, and this one went to somebody else, but I'm going to continue to work on your behalf, whatever you say. And then if you wanted to make a report, if you wanted to send a report of just those people, come down here, click. You can send any data from this screen to an Excel file and make a kind of a closeout report, whatever makes sense. But the long and short of it is, what you want to do, and let me look, what you want to do is be able, because of these tabs, you can not only link to the activity screens, but link to the actual candidate screens themselves, and that's kind of a handy thing. Now, let me go back up here, and but in the menu line across the top, there's a history tab, and history tab is nice because it allows you to see the last 20 records that were on your screen. So I can go back and jump to something. The point of that actually is if you're working away in the database, and then the phone rings, and you get distracted, and 30 minutes later after the phone call, you want to come back and pick up where you left off. This little history tab is a handy thing because it shows you the last 20 records that were on your screen. So I jump back to our guy here. So I took one more quick, a couple more quick concepts. We have a little bit of time left here. Yeah, a couple of concepts. Well, what we did with Ken here, we came down here and we clicked new, and then we could kind of, here he is, and we could click here, and we could connect him to a different job. So all we're doing here is linking him to a single job at a time. What I was showing you the other day, I think, on the searching thing, let's kill this, go back to him. What I wanted to show you is that there is, if you were to do a search, and so we'll do my engineer search. So we'll just click begin. I want to get my records. I got 9 records. As we talked about in the searching thing, data takes you only so far, and then you have to bring a judgment to bear, and you look at Aaron Barrows and you say not so hot, and click a bunch of people out of here, and leave some people in the search and click some more people out of the search. If you do that sort of thing, do a search, use the red X to delete people not from the database now, just from the search result, but then click search and refresh. My 9 is skinny down to 5. Well, I could come down here and I could put these people, I could click that he's linked to a whole bunch of jobs. I could link him to a new job. But what I want to say is that same linking step you can do with this chain link here, this icon, the second icon from the bottom, click. All 5 will be assigned. Pick a job order. Pick any job you want. And if you click a job and say select, I'm going to close without doing this, but I mean, you can link, you don't need to link people one at a time. You can link people in batches to a job, so that can be handy as well. Other couple notes I have here. Let's go back to this guy and back to open. What I wanted to say was that it's so easy to do to make this bridge screen reflect your take on the send-out process. So this is a bit of a, I'll make it a short review, but here, File Database Tools, and the very top item says Settings, very top item, and the menu for File Database Tools is Settings. Click. The Settings tab, if you recall, for these screens, these tabs correspond to all of the screens you see in RESUMate. Well, here's the Job Order Activity tab. I would just encourage you, to take the standard field labels that we provide, which are common sense labels. The labels some people never change the labels that we send with the program with. But a send-out process is so specific to each recruiter's habits and workflow and stuff. Take a few minutes to change, and it's so easy to do. If you say, well, I don't do 4th interviews, double click, just backspace over that and type something else. You can make that job order activity screen reflect your take on the interview process, how it all goes down. It's worth doing so that when you are in a person's record, we'll click open from here. When you're on that person's screen, these dates and these text fields reflect your take on the send-out process. And maybe a final comment here, and that would be because of so much payback coming from a few clicks, I think it's worth putting in, if you're new, put in your active jobs, because, and when you put a job in, by the way, let's finish out with this. When you add a job to the database, don't go to the job order database and click new. No. Go to the client database. Put the client on your screen. If you don't have a record for the client, create a record for the client. Just click new and it can be a skeletal record. Mine are kind of skeletal. They say Boeing and there's no addresses and stuff. But make a record and then come down to the contact section, this tab down here that says contacts, and click new. and add a contact. So step one, create a client record with a contact person. Once that, and then save that. Once that exists, come down here and click to the right-hand side where all the jobs are on the right, click New. When you do that, the link to the client is already established, right? So you don't have to do that link. And if you come down to the contact field and click, here's the contact people, Arthur Anderson, over right, you can click, select somebody, type in the job title. That little bit of data entry, now you're good to go to start linking candidates and get those 5 automatic updates. So customize the activity screen, but even if you don't have a lot of jobs at the moment, put any job you have, because the payback is worth it. If you're using spreadsheets, the database is such a better solution to the objective of tracking candidates. Okay. Let me look for questions here. I see one question. Could you cover managing a retained search? Well, I think there's a few wrinkles that I think would be different if you're doing retained as opposed to contingency searching. I think you're more interested in creating spreadsheets of active candidates that you'd want to forward to your contact at the client to show which candidates are being considered. And you can do that. There's a ton of ways to do that, but they're all going to come down in the end to using this icon and I think creating Excel files. And you could make those Excel files either, and I kind of think you would, of the candidate screens themselves. You would customize your labels on the candidate screen to show to a prospective retained client who are these people. And you'd probably also go to groups and create a new group that would be the name of the retained search assignment. So you can start plunking people into the group. And then at any time, let's just pretend that this is a useful group here, calls I need to make today, it says. So let's pretend that these are candidates that I've assembled for a particular retained search. When whatever that roster is, it's 10. If I come down here to my tab, it says Wizard will export all 10 records. It always tells you what it's going to do. So just the 10 people that you've assembled for that particular search assignment, and then go through and go straight to Excel and then start grabbing the fields and the customized labels, which could be employer, previous title, money, whatever, and send that. I just think, and you can also, by the way, you can create a spreadsheet. This is what's kind of nice about RESUMate 15. If we go, let's go back to our guy here. This guy's presented. If I go to this activity screen, I could even create a spreadsheet using this detail. So I would just say in general, I think retained would differ slightly in that I think you'd want to do more reporting, and I think Excel would be your preferential choice to send the reports. And I think we're done for the day here. And there's no seminars tomorrow or Friday, but we pick up again next Monday. And Monday we talk in detail about this daily planner, and we'll take this all apart and show you different views of this thing. There's a calendar view, there's the status view, a whole bunch of things. This is a very nice tool. It really covers a kind of a critical thing for recruiting, and that is, when you start your day, you kind of want to know what am I going to do today, and you want the software to have assembled a plan with 0 clicks. So that's next Monday. Thanks for attending today, and we'll talk again next time.